Welcome, everyone. This is the fourth workshop in the series of 7 main female archetypes, and today we will work with the Mother Archetype. You want to work with this energy when you need to call in nurturing, compassion, and caregiving. For example, when you need support with self-care practices, fostering emotional intelligence, parenting, and motherhood, supporting loved ones, and so on. Mother is nourishing, compassionate, and devoted. This archetype represents the caregiver and the protector. And it is also connected to the heart chakra. So the heart chakra's location is center of the chest, the heart and respiratory and cardiac systems, as well as the thymus gland. When balanced, you feel love, compassion, and you can foster harmonious relationships. But when it's unbalanced, your heart might be closed off, you might feel lack of empathy, resentment, and just some difficulties in relationships in general. So let's look at our agenda for today. There are 3 parts to this workshop. On YouTube, I will share the first part only, and if you want to access the rest, I invite you to check the link to my workshop. It's in the description box down below. So the first one is a theory which will provide you with self-awareness. When you know what you want more of and which beliefs are causing you problems, you can work with that information and focus on what you want to cultivate. You will learn all about the shadow aspect of this archetype, what happens if it's absent in your life, and also how to tap into its brilliance. The second part is the experiential part, in which you will go into the state of mind, which will connect you to your inner wisdom. And people love this part because you will experience how much wisdom you hold inside. You might be surprised, or maybe not, but you will see that it's not that hard to connect to yourself and get all the answers that you're seeking from within. And the last one is action or embodiment. So you want to cultivate what you want more of, right? And the emphasis will be on the experiential part because we live in an overflowing of information. It's more important that you apply information or apply the knowledge rather than just consume it. And I know I'm repeating myself, but for me, analogy of a cookbook really works well. So you can read, all the recipes, but at the end of the day, if you don't make any, you will still be hungry. My intention for you is that no matter what relationship you have with the mother archetype and what relationship you've had with your mother, or motherly role in your life or motherly figure in your life, I would like to offer you some insight together with the experience that will help you build a supportive relationship with this archetype. And that will help you get kinder and more loving towards yourself. And that is so crucial. And I've mentioned this before, but so many women have been conditioned to be in a motherly role, even though it wouldn't have been a natural choice for them. So on the other hand, women who strongly feel connected to this archetype with all their heart might struggle to be moms to themselves, which I would argue is the foundation of being a good mom for others in any shape or form. But let's also acknowledge that mother-daughter relationships are not the easiest. Would you agree with that? So the mother archetype is paired with the heart chakra and acts like a bridge between higher spiritual chakras and lower physical ones. And it speaks about the transcendence of the illusion of duality by accepting all. Heart chakra gives you a perspective that you aren't here just to meet your survival needs, but to connect to everyone and everything on the heart level, because you are not separate. And it's so important to emphasize that you aren't only deserving of love. Drop the illusion of ego that keeps you small. You are love. Deserving is a human concept that you need to drop, because there isn't a single part of you that is not made out of love. So love is the creation and you're part of it. It's really that simple. So why wouldn't love by itself be worthy? It's really a concept that we kind of conform to. And my wish is also for you to gain more compassion for yourself and tune into that mother archetype to provide you with the energy that will support you and your inner child, either or even inner teenager, and all the other parts that need a loving parent. So that's the crux of why I'm doing this. And I would like actually to start with the martyr energy before I explain the shadow, because I believe that martyr is part of the mother archetype. And in my opinion, it is a response to the energy when it gets forced on someone. And I will explain. So caregiving and sacrifice are perceived as admirable qualities, especially for women in most cultures. Would you agree with that? So if caregiving isn't done from the heart space, it will deplete you unless you're compensated, which oftentimes isn't the case. As some of us have been on a journey through these different archetypes in my workshop, it's interesting how each of us relates to them differently. I sometimes wonder when I get your feedback and some of you say, I don't feel connected to this archetype. And my question is that because you were raised this way, or is that inherent to you? Like, really think about certain archetypes. Is it because you were raised this way, or is that inherent quality in you? And for the mother archetype, pay attention throughout this workshop if you have been trying to fit into this archetype more than it actually is a fit for you. The thing is, not every woman has the mother archetype in her top 3. However, some of these women, and you might relate to that, were forced to embody characteristics of the mother archetype. And when a woman embodies something that doesn't fully resonate with her heart and soul, it will never fulfill her, because it's like wearing shoes that don't fit. And I believe this is how martyr energy gets born. And maybe just take a pause and just think about it. Maybe look into the females around you if they're exhibiting any martyr characteristics, and just maybe check in and see if that resonates. So martyr energy is characterized by the willingness to endure suffering, hardship, or discomfort for the perceived benefit or well-being of others. If that doesn't sound wrong, I don't know what does. Because that leads to a pattern of self-neglect, codependency, and a lack of healthy boundaries. And these women who embody martyr, which is most likely due to their upbringing, are out of touch with their power. And this is what I find the saddest thing, because I believe that no one should be out of touch with their power. So they must restore it by recognizing the behavior first. And that's why I find this subject is so important. And that said, I want to highlight some of the martyr's characteristics solely if they will help you with awareness, either if you or anyone else close to you exhibits those. So those are self-sacrifice, guilt and obligation, excessive caretaking, a lack of boundaries, burnout and resentment, and avoidance of self, among others. And what is so important to notice here is those aren't to be judged, but to embrace with compassion. And we'll do that in meditation part. But seriously, because those were just the best mechanisms someone had at play to survive. This is really what everything is. So having compassion for that first is how we change it. Okay, but let's look at the shadow so we can understand how this came about. So what is your shadow? Your shadow is everything you judge, deny, feel ashamed of, or hide related to others or yourself. And how do you get that, you might ask? Well, growing up by the age of 7, what inevitably happens is that certain parts of you start being rejected by either your parents, caregivers, or the environment. And that might be anything from either singing too loud or speaking your truth or being shy. It doesn't matter. To feel love, safety, and connection to your caregivers, you had to suppress or deny certain parts which weren't acceptable for them. And this is how shadow appeared. So for you to survive when you were a child, you disconnected from your shadow self. And as I mentioned, the cure for the shadow is embracing those outcasted parts with love and compassion, because that is what they have been craving from the moment they had been outcasted. And the good part of all this, that only you have the power to do that, to give them that. And isn't that great? I would say so. So let's look at the biggest fears and challenges for the Mother Archetype. And as you're listening to those, I would like you to check in with yourself about which fear you can most closely relate to. And again, I will repeat myself, but no judgment, only curiosity and compassion, okay? You're getting to know yourself so that you are aware of what you might be doing, which isn't really serving you and is taking away your power. All right. So the first one is fear of inadequacy. So the Mother Archetype may fear that she's not doing enough or providing sufficient care for her loved ones. Sounds familiar, right? Okay. So then we have fear of rejection. So she might have deep emotional investment in others, and that can stem from a fear of rejection or abandonment. So she may worry that if she doesn't care for others perfectly, that they will leave her or not reciprocate her love. Then the next one is over-identification with caregiving or loss of identity. So Mother Archetype might struggle with defining her sense of self beyond her role as a caregiver. So if caregiving role changes, this can lead to a fear of losing her identity or purpose. And that can also happen during transitions. For example, moms that are moms to a child, and then when a child grows into a teenager, there is a shift in motherly role. So she needs to kind of adjust. And then when they leave the nest, there is another transition, right? So even if someone has mom or mother archetype throughout her whole life, it changes, it evolves. Then we have fear of others' well-being. So she may carry a heavy emotional burden of worrying about the well-being and happiness of her loved ones. And this can lead to anxiety or stress. And then we have balancing self-care. So one of the challenges for the mother archetype is finding a balance between caring for others and caring for herself, because she might feel guilty or even selfish when she prioritizes herself, her well-being. Next one is letting go. As loved ones grow and become more independent, the mother archetype may struggle to let go, and I mentioned that earlier, and really allow them to make their own choices and mistakes. So basically her fear can hinder their personal growth. And it's really important that she keeps an eye on that. Fear of vulnerability. So mother archetype might find it difficult to express her own needs and emotions. So she doesn't want to be burdening others with her struggles. So she might not be able to ask for help. And the last one is fear of being unneeded. So as loved ones become more self-sufficient, mother archetype may fear becoming unnecessary or irrelevant in their lives, which is so not true. But her role just changes. That's the only thing. So yeah, but this fear can create a sense of loss or emptiness. And again, just check in with yourself if anything resonated, or even if you are on a receiving end of someone who has the mother archetype very prominent in your life. What is the mother's archetype shadow aspect? The shadow aspect of the mother archetype can manifest as the smothering mother or enmeshed mother. And the way it comes about is she can become overly controlling and protective to the point of stifling the autonomy and independence of her loved ones. Then she may have difficulty letting go of her loved ones, tempting to micromanage their lives and decisions, even when they're capable of handling things on their own. The next one is a lack of healthy boundaries. When she's emotionally enmeshed with those she cares for, it makes it challenges for them to establish their own identities and make independent choices. And also projection of her unfulfilled desires onto others, like pursuing them to fulfill the roles and dreams she has envisioned for them, even if it doesn't align with their true desires. So the result of the shadow is a sense of entanglement, codependency, and a stifling environment that prevents healthy growth and self-discovery. It's important to know that the shadow aspect of the mother archetype arises when the archetype's positive qualities become distorted or taken to an unhealthy extreme. And it's with a lot of things in life, excess of something isn't necessarily good. And recognizing and addressing this shadow involves having awareness of boundaries, open communication, and allowing loved ones the space to develop their own identities and life path. What if a woman lacks a connection with the mother archetype? So she might have difficulties in nourishing others, which can affect her relationships, especially parenting roles. She might struggle with self-nourishing and prioritizing her well-being. She might even neglect self-care practices. Then she might have challenges in parenting because this archetype is closely linked to motherhood, so that role might be really hard for her. Next one is difficulties in establishing deep emotional connections in relationships, and then feeling disconnected from femininity and struggling to embrace the nourishing and compassionate aspects of being a woman. Then we have struggles with expressing empathy and truly understanding the emotions of others. Difficulties in creating a home. It might be challenging to establish a comforting and harmonious home environment. Then we have issues with self-compassion and love towards oneself, and that might lead to self-criticism and a lack of self-love. and also a challenge of handling life transitions, as I already mentioned. So she might feel less grounded and secure. And lastly, impact on healing and wellness. So she might find it challenging to engage in holistic healing practices and may miss out on emotional and spiritual aspects of wellness. So what is Mother's biggest challenge that can become her biggest gift? Finding the balance between caring for others and caring for herself. So when she learns to prioritize self-care without guilt, that allows her to offer even more authentic and sustainable love and support to those she cares for. And I always wonder, why is that so hard? Why do we need to be reminded of taking ourselves first? It's so hard, right? I don't know if you can relate to that. So when she overcomes the tendency to self-sacrifice to an unhealthy extent, the mother archetype transforms into a nurturing force of love that models self-compassion and healthy boundaries. And that can create an environment of love and empowerment for herself and her loved ones. And I know this sounds counterintuitive, but again, taking care of yourself first it's the way to go. Yeah, by taking care of herself, she inspires and models for others to prioritize their well-being, which leads us to her brilliance. So brilliance in the mother archetype is the radiant expression of unconditional love, compassion, and care. So this is her superpower. And let's break it down. We have unconditional love, which is self-explanatory. Nourishing wisdom. She has this intuitive understanding of the needs and emotions of others, which makes her offer guidance, support, comfort, and a safe space for others. And she has empathetic presence. She possesses the gift of being fully present with others, which creates a profound sense of validation and emotional healing. Then healing and comfort. She can soothe emotional wounds and provide a safe space or a sense of peace with only her presence. Creating bonds. So she fosters deep connections and relationships. She's guiding light as her role as a guide and mentor. And she also provides a legacy of love. So the impact she has on others ripples through generations, creating a lasting positive influence on families, communities, and societies as a whole. And isn't that just mind-blowing and so powerful? If that's not that, I don't know what is. So in summary, brilliance within the mother archetype is the embodiment of unconditional love, nourishing wisdom, and empathetic presence. So she nourishes, heals, guides, and leaves a profound and lasting imprint on all those fortunate enough to be touched by her presence. And I believe it's fair to say that that is one of the most powerful archetypes. So now that you have all this information, what do you do with it? That's a good question. And here are my two options or suggestions. Number one, pay attention when fears and shadow attributes present themselves and be curious about them. Ask that part of you, what do you need from me to feel safe? Because as I said before, that part didn't feel safe. That was part that was in the shadow, that was rejected, outcasted. So in order to integrate with that part, you need to accept it. You need to give it love. All right. And number two, which I find it even more important, because I find what can happen sometimes is that we are so focused on our shortcomings that we fail to acknowledge all the gifts, all the brilliance, all the magic that we already hold inside and expand on those. So in the next 14 days, I want you to notice all the times when you exhibit brilliance of this archetype. And this way you can reinforce all those qualities that you wish to cultivate more and recognize that you actually possess them already. They aren't separate to you. They are in you. I promise you that. And this second is such a powerful tool if you can give to yourself, if you want to commit to your greatness. You don't want to skip this one, I promise. And for those of you who want to dive deeper and are committed to make lasting changes that happen when you work in the level of your subconscious mind, because remember, 95% of our mind is subconscious. So even if we have a conscious desire to change something, if our subconscious mind isn't on board, it's really hard to follow up. So I invite you to check my training, 7 Main Female Archetype, Become Her, the woman you desire to be. And the link is in the description box down below. And thank you so much for watching. And I'm sending you all of my love. Bye.